Welcome back to another exciting episode of the English Hour. Today, we're diving into the topic of effective learning strategies for mastering English. Joining me once again is Jacob, a language enthusiast who has a wealth of experience in language learning. Welcome back, Jacob.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm excited to be here and talk about how to make English learning not only effective but also enjoyable. There's so much to explore, so let's dive right in.
Absolutely. So, let's start with the basics. What do you think is the most effective way to learn English, especially for beginners? Should they focus more on grammar, vocabulary, or something else?
Great question, Sophia. In my opinion, for beginners, the key is to focus on the basics, but not just grammar or vocabulary in isolation. It's important to start with simple conversations. That's where you can pick up natural expressions, sentence structures, and essential vocabulary that will serve you well in real-world communication. Grammar is important, of course, but I think it should be integrated gradually as learners encounter it in context.
That's such a great point. So, rather than just memorizing rules, focusing on how the language is used in everyday conversations makes it more practical. Right?
Exactly. Language is all about communication. If you start with conversations, even if they're simple, you begin to understand how to form sentences, use phrases in context, and improve your pronunciation. It's not about learning vocabulary in a vacuum, but about using it in real situations.
I totally agree. Speaking of conversations, how do you recommend learners find opportunities to practice speaking in English if they don't have native speakers around them?
Well, that's where technology comes in. There are so many platforms out there now that allow learners to practice with people around the world, from language exchange apps to online classes. Even social media can be a great tool. Just follow accounts that post in English and try to engage with their content. It's all about making sure you're surrounded by the language.
That's a brilliant tip. It's all about creating an environment where English is constantly around you. So, let's talk about listening. How important is listening comprehension in the process of learning English?
Listening is absolutely crucial, Sophia. It's one of the best ways to absorb the natural rhythm, tone, and intonation of the language. When you listen to podcasts, watch movies, or even listen to songs, you're hearing the language used in context, and it helps you build your ear for it. The more you listen, the better your understanding becomes, and it also helps with speaking because you start to notice how words are pronounced.
I love that. It's so true that we learn a lot just by listening, even when we're not actively trying to study. Do you have any specific resources you recommend for listening practice?
For sure, podcasts are a great resource, obviously. The English Hour is a fantastic one, but there are also plenty of other educational podcasts. Besides that, YouTube is full of channels designed to help learners with listening skills, from simple videos to more advanced discussions. I also recommend listening to songs in English and following along with the lyrics. It's a fun way to learn new words and phrases.
Those are awesome suggestions, and I think what's great about songs, too, is that they help learners pick up more natural, informal phrases that might not always be taught in a classroom setting.
Exactly. Songs give you a glimpse into the way people actually speak in daily life, and they can teach you slang, idiomatic expressions, and colloquialisms that you wouldn't normally learn from textbooks.
That's such a good point. Now, let's talk about writing. For many English learners, writing can be one of the most challenging aspects. Do you have any tips for improving writing skills?
Yes, one of the best ways to improve writing is to start by journaling. It doesn't have to be anything formal, just write down your thoughts or what you did during the day in English. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just focus on getting your ideas down. This will help you practice sentence structure, vocabulary, and even grammar in a natural way.
I love that. So, journaling is a way to let your creativity flow while practicing English, which sounds like a fun way to learn. Would you say it's better to write short pieces daily? Or should learners work on longer projects?
I'd say a bit of both. Daily short writing like journaling helps you stay consistent and build confidence. But longer writing projects, like essays or stories, are great for applying everything you've learned and pushing your writing skills further. Plus, they give you the opportunity to focus on organizing ideas and making your writing more cohesive.
That's such solid advice, Jacob. Writing both short and long pieces helps develop different aspects of the skill.
Exactly. It's a balance, and the more you write, the more comfortable you'll become with expressing your thoughts clearly.
So true. And one final tip I'd love to ask you about. How important do you think it is for learners to set specific goals in their language learning journey?
I think setting clear goals is essential. Without goals, you might feel like you're just drifting without a clear purpose. Setting goals gives you direction, helps you stay motivated, and lets you measure progress. Whether it's learning a certain number of new words each week, or being able to have a conversation in English for 10 minutes, goals keep you on track and remind you why you're putting in the effort.
I couldn't agree more. Having goals makes everything feel more achievable, and it helps you stay focused on the bigger picture.
Absolutely, it's all about steady, consistent progress. Small wins add up to big results over time.
Well said, Jacob, and to all our listeners, I hope you feel inspired and ready to dive into your language learning journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. Jacob.
Thank you, Sophia. It was a pleasure. And to all of you listening, remember consistency is key, so keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep enjoying the journey.
Well said. And to everyone listening, keep up the hard work, and don't forget to keep having fun with it. Stay tuned for more episodes, and until next time, keep practicing your English. Thanks for sticking with us. So, Jacob, let's take a deeper dive into some of the common challenges that learners face when it comes to speaking. What do you think is one of the biggest hurdles for people when they start speaking English?
Oh, that's a big one. I'd say the fear of making mistakes is probably the biggest barrier. Many learners get so caught up in wanting to speak perfectly that they hesitate to speak at all. But the truth is, mistakes are a natural part of the learning process, and they actually help you improve. So, the key is to embrace them and not let them stop you from speaking.
That's so true. The fear of making mistakes can hold people back from practicing, and without practice, it's hard to improve. So, how can learners overcome that fear and become more confident speakers?
A great way to overcome that fear is to start small. You don't need to have a full conversation right away. Begin by speaking in short sentences or even practicing by reading out loud. Gradually, as you gain confidence, you can engage in longer conversations. It's all about building that comfort level step by step. And remember, it's totally okay to make mistakes.
That's great advice. And I think another important factor in building confidence is listening to yourself. Sometimes learners don't realize that they're actually improving until they hear themselves speak, even if they feel unsure in the moment. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Listening to yourself is a powerful tool. It's one of the best ways to track your progress. Sometimes, when you look back at recordings of yourself speaking, you'll be surprised at how much better you've gotten without even realizing it. Plus, hearing yourself allows you to catch any mistakes and fix them for the next time.
That's such a practical tip. So, speaking of improvement, what role do you think learning new vocabulary plays in this process? How should learners approach building their vocabulary?
Vocabulary is absolutely crucial, but it's important not to focus on memorizing isolated words. The key is learning words in context. Try to learn new words through sentences or phrases because that's how you're going to hear and use them in real life conversations. And once you learn a word, make sure to use it in your own sentences to solidify your understanding and remember it better.
I completely agree. If you learn words just by their definition, it's easy to forget them. But if you see them used in context, whether in a sentence or a conversation, they stick with you much longer.
Exactly, and another tip is to review vocabulary regularly. Spaced repetition is a great technique to help you remember words over time. It's a technique where you review words after increasing intervals. This helps reinforce them in your memory.
I love the idea of spaced repetition. It's so much more effective than cramming all the words in at once. And, of course, using vocabulary in real conversations is the best way to make sure you don't forget it.
Right? It's all about integration. The more you integrate new words into your everyday speech or writing, the more natural they'll become.
And as learners grow more comfortable, it's important for them to challenge themselves, right? So, once they get the basics down, how can they push their skills further?
Absolutely. Once you've mastered the basics, the next step is to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You can do this by practicing more complex conversations, reading books or articles in English, and even watching movies or shows without subtitles. Immersing yourself in more advanced material will expand your vocabulary and improve your comprehension.
Yes, I think immersion is key. By exposing yourself to more challenging content, you'll start noticing patterns in how the language works. And before you know it, you'll feel more fluent. It's about gradually increasing the difficulty level to keep pushing your limits.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative. You can also try things like keeping an English-only social media account or engaging in online communities where English is the primary language. That way, you're constantly surrounded by the language in both formal and informal contexts.
Those are some really creative ways to challenge yourself. It sounds like the journey to mastering English is one of consistent effort, self-confidence, and willingness to step outside of your comfort zone.
That's right, it's a continuous journey, but the beauty of it is that every step forward is a victory. Don't be discouraged by the challenges along the way. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap things up on. Thank you so much for your insights, Jacob.
Thank you, Sophia. It's always a pleasure. And to everyone listening, remember, stay consistent, challenge yourself, and keep enjoying the process of learning.
Exactly. To everyone listening, keep pushing forward with your English learning journey, and don't forget to have fun along the way. Until next time, keep practicing and keep improving. So, Jacob, let's dive a bit deeper into those challenges. Sometimes, even with all the motivation, learners can hit a wall. What would you recommend for someone who feels stuck in their progress?
That's a great question. Hitting a wall is pretty common, and it can be frustrating, but it's important to remember that it's a part of the learning process. When that happens, I'd suggest taking a step back and mixing things up. If you've been studying grammar rules for weeks, try something different, like watching a TV show in English or listening to a podcast. Changing the method or context of your learning can reignite your enthusiasm and make things feel fresh again.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in one method, especially when you're determined to get it right. But sometimes, diversifying can keep the process enjoyable. Another thing I've noticed is that some learners tend to compare themselves to others. Do you think that can be an issue?
Oh, absolutely. Comparing yourself to others can lead to unnecessary pressure. Every learner's journey is different. Some people might advance faster than others, but that doesn't mean you're behind. It's important to focus on your own progress and celebrate the small wins. Even if it's something as simple as understanding a word you didn't know before, those moments of improvement are what count. It's the cumulative effect that leads to fluency.
That's such an important reminder. Sometimes, the smallest victories are the most meaningful. It's about focusing on the process, not just the end goal. Now, we've been talking a lot about self-paced learning. But do you think interaction with others, like in language exchange, plays a big role?
Oh, definitely. Having conversations with others is one of the most valuable things you can do to improve. Not only does it give you real-life practice, but it also helps you get used to the flow of natural conversation. When you interact with a native speaker or another learner, you'll get to hear different accents, slang, and expressions that you might not find in textbooks.
That's so true. Having those real conversations helps learners understand the language beyond the theory. It's almost like a simulation of what they'll experience when they're speaking English in the real world. Plus, it's a great confidence booster.
Exactly. And the best part is that language exchange doesn't have to be formal. You can find casual ways to practice, like chatting with someone online, joining a social group, or even making friends with someone who's learning your language. The key is consistency. The more you interact, the more comfortable you'll get with speaking.
I love that. And I think some people might worry about not being perfect when speaking. But in real world conversations, it's totally okay to make mistakes, right?
Absolutely, in fact, making mistakes shows you're trying, and that's something to be proud of. Native speakers make mistakes too. The important thing is communication. If you can convey your ideas clearly, even with a few errors, you're still successful. Over time, the mistakes will decrease and your confidence will skyrocket.
That's such a reassuring perspective. So, if someone listening is feeling hesitant about speaking, what advice would you give them?
I'd say start small. You don't have to dive straight into full conversations if you're not ready. Practice with simple sentences, repeat them out loud, or even talk to yourself in English. The more you do it, the more natural it'll feel. And remember, nobody starts speaking perfectly right away, so be patient with yourself.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about building that comfort and confidence over time. And eventually, speaking will just feel like second nature.
Exactly. Keep practicing, stay positive, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you put yourself out there, the better you'll get.
Such great advice, Jacob. I think we've covered so much today, from overcoming fears to embracing mistakes and finding new ways to practice. It's been such a helpful conversation.
Thanks, Sophia. I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone listening finds something they can apply to their own learning journey. Just keep going, and you'll see progress.
Absolutely. And to all of you out there, don't forget, every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, enjoy the process. We'll see you in the next episode. I'm so glad we're able to dive into all these tips today. Jacob, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think is one of the most underrated skills in language learning that people often overlook?
Oh, that's a good one. I'd say listening is definitely underrated. A lot of learners focus on speaking, reading, and writing, but listening is just as crucial, if not more. The more you listen, the more you start to understand the nuances of the language, the rhythm, the intonation, and even the slang or idiomatic expressions that textbooks don't always cover.
That's such a great point. Listening is like the foundation for speaking naturally. If you're not exposed to how the language actually sounds in conversation, it's hard to replicate that in your own speech.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be intense or structured. Listening to podcasts, watching movies, or even listening to songs in English can be incredibly helpful. It's also a fun way to learn because you're doing something you enjoy while improving your language skills.
I totally agree. It doesn't always have to feel like a study session, right? You can learn through entertainment, and it makes the whole experience more enjoyable. Have you tried listening to different accents, Jacob? I find that really interesting.
Oh, yes, that's actually something I encourage learners to do. Different accents give you a whole new perspective on the language. It can be a bit tricky at first because you're so used to one accent, but once you get the hang of it, it helps you understand people from various regions much better.
That's true. It's also a reminder that English is a global language, and people from all over the world speak it in their unique ways. Getting used to different accents can help us be more inclusive and understanding of others when we're conversing.
Absolutely. Plus, it's a great challenge for your listening skills. You don't just learn the vocabulary or grammar, you learn how the language adapts and changes depending on where it's spoken.
Such a cool aspect of language learning. So, if you had to recommend one activity to anyone struggling with their listening skills, what would it be?
I'd say watch something with subtitles, but only in the language you're learning. For example, watch a movie in English, but don't use your native language subtitles, use English subtitles instead. This way, you get to hear the language, read it, and start connecting the sounds to the words and meanings.
That's a perfect tip. It's like immersive learning without leaving your home. Plus, you get the bonus of picking up vocabulary that's often used in everyday conversation.
Exactly, and don't be afraid to rewind if you don't understand something. That's how you'll catch the little things you might have missed the first time. It's all about repetition and persistence.
Rewind and repeat. Sounds like the key to mastering listening skills. And hey, that's another way of embracing mistakes, right? We all need to be okay with taking our time to understand things.
Exactly, it's part of the learning process. Everyone has their own pace. The key is just to keep moving forward, even if it's just a small step at a time.
Well, I'm definitely feeling motivated after this conversation. So much practical advice and reassurance. Thanks again, Jacob, for sharing all these insights.
It was my pleasure. Sophia, I hope everyone listening walks away with something they can use right away.
And for everyone out there, remember, language learning is a journey, not a race. Keep practicing, stay patient with yourself, and most importantly, have fun with it. We'll catch you in the next episode. Before we wrap up, Jacob, one more question. What would you say to someone who's just starting their language learning journey? Any words of encouragement?
Definitely, I'd say, don't rush. It's easy to get discouraged when things don't seem to click right away, but every little effort counts. Even if you feel like you're not making huge progress, trust that every new word, every sentence you understand, is one step closer to fluency. And most importantly, enjoy the process.
I love that. It's easy to focus on the end goal, but appreciating the small victories along the way can really make the whole experience more enjoyable. I think that's a great mindset to have.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate those small wins. If you learned a new word today or understood a sentence you didn't get before, that's progress. Celebrate it, it builds momentum and keeps you motivated.
That's such a great reminder, Jacob. It's all about celebrating the little milestones. And speaking of celebration, have you tried any fun ways to reinforce your learning, like games or apps?
Oh yes, I've tried several language learning apps, and I think they're a fantastic tool. They make learning feel like a game. It's less stressful, and you can challenge yourself in a fun way. Plus, the daily streaks or rewards you get for completing lessons are a great motivator.
That's so true. And I love how apps like that can make it feel like you're playing rather than studying. It's a great way to stay consistent, especially when you're busy or just not in the mood for traditional studying.
Absolutely, I think using a variety of methods keeps things interesting. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, and then mixing in some games or apps, it keeps your learning balanced and fun.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I hope everyone listening feels inspired to mix things up a little in their own language learning routine. Jacob, you've been such a great guest today. Thanks again for sharing your tips and wisdom.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been great chatting about language learning. I hope everyone finds their own rhythm and keeps enjoying the journey.
And to our listeners, remember, language learning doesn't have to be overwhelming. Take it one step at a time, mix in some fun, and stay motivated. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Before we wrap things up, Jacob, what's something you do when you hit a learning plateau? You know, those moments when it feels like you're not making progress.
Those plateaus can be frustrating, for sure. When that happens, I usually take a break from studying the same material and try something new, like watching a TV show or reading a book in the language. It helps me get back into the groove without feeling like I'm stuck in a rut. Plus, I think it's important to remind yourself that plateaus are a natural part of the learning process. You're still making progress, even if it doesn't feel like it at the moment.
I love that. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to always be improving, but stepping back can be just what you need to refresh. And I think changing things up, like switching to a fun language activity, can reignite that spark.
Exactly. And sometimes just reminding yourself of why you started can help too. When you reconnect with your motivation, it makes it easier to push through those tough times.
That's such a great point. Keeping your end goal in mind and remembering why you began the journey in the first place can really fuel your persistence. Any tips for staying consistent with learning?
Definitely, one thing I recommend is setting small, realistic goals. If you focus on mastering one thing at a time, like learning 10 new words a day, you won't feel overwhelmed. I also set reminders on my phone to practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It's better to do something small every day than to skip practice for days or weeks.
That's such a practical strategy. Consistency really is key. Even just a little bit of practice every day adds up to a lot over time.
For sure, and don't be too hard on yourself. Life happens, and sometimes you'll miss a day. But the important thing is to get back on track as soon as you can and not let it discourage you.
Absolutely. It's all about progress, not perfection. And if you miss a day, you can always make it up the next. I think that's a really encouraging message for everyone who's listening right now. Keep going, no matter what.
Yep. Stay positive and keep learning. It's a journey, and each step forward counts. Plus, the more you immerse yourself in the language, the easier it becomes to pick up.
Right, and that immersion can come in many forms, whether it's watching shows, listening to podcasts, or even just having conversations with people. All of it counts.
Exactly. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more natural it feels. Even if you're not consciously trying to learn, you're still picking up new phrases and expressions.
So true. Well, this has been such a helpful and inspiring conversation. Thank you again for sharing your insights, Jacob. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me, Sophia. It's been great chatting with you, and I hope everyone listening feels a little more motivated and excited about their own language learning journey.
And to our listeners, remember, learning a language is about enjoying the journey and celebrating those little victories along the way. Keep practicing. Stay consistent, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Oh, and one more thing I want to mention. Finding a community can really boost your progress. Whether it's an online group, a language exchange partner, or a local class, having people around you who are on the same journey can be super motivating.
That's such a valuable point, Jacob. Community brings encouragement, accountability, and sometimes even friendly competition. I've seen learners make huge progress just by being part of a group where they feel supported.
Exactly. You get to share tips, practice together, and sometimes just vent when things get tough. It makes the whole experience more human and less isolating.
And it's also a great way to practice speaking in a more natural, conversational way. Sometimes textbooks don't prepare you for the slang, humor, or casual phrases that real people use.
Yes, like I remember the first time someone used an idiom with me, I was completely lost. But when you're part of a community, you pick up on those things so much faster.
Haha, that's so true. And speaking of idioms, we should definitely do an episode all about those tricky expressions. They're fun, but definitely confusing at first.
I'd love that. English is full of wild idioms, like spill the beans or hit the nail on the head. It's cool when you finally learn them and then start using them naturally in conversation.
Yes, and they make your speech sound way more fluent too. Okay, Jacob, I've got a fun question for you. If you had to describe your language learning journey using an idiom, what would it be?
I'd say it's been a roller coaster ride. Ups, downs, moments of excitement, and even a few times I felt like screaming. But at the end of the day, it's all been worth it.
That is perfect. Language learning is a roller coaster, but one with a great view at the top. All right, do you want to keep chatting, Jacob? Or should we see if our audience wants us to dive into a new topic next time?